G'day folks and welcome to the Encounters Down Under podcast. I'm your host Anthony Goodall and I invite guests to the show to share their amazing encounters with aliens and UFOs. If you or someone you know has had an encounter down under or anywhere in the world for our new segment Encounters Unbound, please get in touch with me via the Encounters Down Under Facebook page or email at australianUFOsightings@outlook.com.au. Be sure to join the Encounters Down Under Facebook page and YouTube channel where you can also get involved during the live stream interviews, sharing your thoughts and opinions during the live show. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to give us a rating and review on your favourite listening platform. But anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get into what you've been waiting for. Kick back and relax with your favourite beverage and enjoy the show. This episode is available to view on our YouTube channel, so be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with your thoughts on the episode. G'day folks and welcome to another episode of Encounters Down Under. Ben Hurle joins us on the podcast, who is one of Australia's most prominent UFO researchers and investigators. With years of history in the field, we look into Ben's history on what led him down the path of UFOs and what it takes to be an investigator. So please welcome to the show, Ben. G'day Ben, how you going, mate?
G'day Anthony, how are you? Very well, thanks for having me on the show.
Mate, it's my pleasure, mate. It's absolutely great having you on here, mate. You've got years of history behind you, mate, and mate, where do we even start with you? I suppose the first question is where did it all start for you? Do you have your own personal encounter or something like that, or what got you in this whole UFO research?
Yeah, well, it started back many years ago. So my first interest began when I was basically in primary school, so going back a long way. And the first books I bought through the school book club were UFO books, and I just started reading them, and I just started absorbing them from around the age of 7, 8, 9, 10. I just started reading all those sort of books because I always had this feeling that there is something out there beyond what we know, what we've experienced, that there must be intelligent life or other life forms out there, whether they're in the universe or multiverse or wherever they are, other dimensions, that it's always been there. And from the stories that I was reading, even as a child, they were such fantastic tales. Stories like, Travis Walton and Betty and Barney Hill and the classic, Rendlesham case and Roswell. So all of those big cases and the credibility of the witnesses around them, even as a young child, I thought, well, that's just, there's got to be something to this. And beyond that, I sort of, once I grew up, I sort of moved into other things for a while. And then in the 90s, I sort of got right back into it again. Like when the X-Files came out, which was a big hit, I sort of really got back into it. And I was reading and looking at videos and getting right back into what I was doing when I was a child. And I've had a couple of my own UFO encounters as well, which we can talk about. But this is just background on how I got there. And when I was about the age of about 40, I decided that I would really like to be involved in investigating UFOs. Like it was something I'd always been interested in, something I'd always wanted to do. And I live out in the country here in Victoria, about 3 hours outside of Melbourne, and there was nothing happening down here. But there had been in the past, but nothing at all at that time. So I looked up the Ufologist magazine, which was Robert Fowler's magazine, produced out of Brisbane, that went for many years. And there was a guy in there called George Simpson who was doing meetings in Melbourne. And I contacted George and he said, yep, come along. So I went to one of his meetings. I went to 2 of his meetings, 3 of his meetings. And that's me driving 3 hours down there on my own time to go and attend. So I was absolutely fascinated by it. And all I wanted to do was, at that time, was be around interested people who also shared the same interest. And when I was there, I met another man called Andrew Arnold at one of the meetings, and he was trying to get a UFO group up and running in Victoria, which was called Victorian UFO Action. And Andrew and I hit it off really well, and we got together and we started to make this organisation that was trying to replace Viewforce, which had been the long time UFO group in Victoria. They'd been around for decades, and then by the time they got to the early 2000s, they had just run out of puff. They were all old. There was no succession planning. And it came down to one young guy who was left by the time they all started dying, and the whole group just sort of gradually fizzled out, even though there's still a website for it. The group was not active. So Andrew and I got together and we decided we would actively replace them with something that people could report UFOs to. We'd present as much information as we could. We had videos, we had all sorts of links and articles and all that sort of stuff on the original website. And this is around about 2010, around that sort of vintage when we started doing it. And even then, that website was a pretty old, clunky website at the time. And most importantly of all, we went out and made videos. We went out and made videos on Australian cases, and particularly Victorian cases, because that's where we were based. So we would go out and we'd find witnesses. We would go to locations. We would track people down. We would do anything to find people, take them back. We did all that sort of stuff. We're out there filming in paddocks, swatting at flies and all sorts of stuff, going out to where all the UFO encounters were around Victoria. And at the same time, we were also receiving current reports. So that was one sort of aspect of how I sort of got into it. And I became a full-blown UFO investigator for about 14 years or so. And had done a bit of everything in that time. I've also done, I was in the National Geographic channel on Invasion Earth. I did one of their episodes, which was on the Burke's Flat bending headlights case. I've done that. I was on the recent one that was on Channel 7 last year. The name escapes me right now. I was on that.
Close Encounters Down Under?
Yeah, Close Encounters Down Under. That's yep. I was in that.
Yeah.
And I've also done podcasting. So I've done interviews in America on various podcasts, and I had my own podcast show in a couple of incantations in America. The last one I had was on the UNX network over there, and I just stopped that earlier this year because I was just needing a bit of a break. So I've had quite a bit of varied sort of things. I've done newspaper articles, and also been on the Today Show as well, which was a nightmare experience with Carl. And here we are. So all of that, plus the fact that I've had my own encounters, seen quite a few strange things in the sky, and plus of other few strange incidents that have occurred. That's sort of the fast forward getting us up to, where I sit now. So it's been quite a good journey.
No, that's awesome. Because you obviously got to start somewhere, and it's just the fact that you weren't interested from an actual sighting that got you progressing into where you are today. Basically, that's because usually when people have an encounter, that's when they spark the whole interest and start wanting to go, oh, look, I'm going to go and look into this a bit more.
My interest
really does someone more of your case, of your stature.
Yeah, my interest was came more through like an actual knowing, like me knowing that this stuff is real. Like, I didn't have an actual encounter that triggered it. I've had plenty of encounters, but my interest had begun well before that. So, I was into this from quite a young age. So, I accepted its reality from right back. So there was never a question for me of like an awakening or all of a sudden I was, wow, what was that? And now I'm suddenly interested in this topic. For me, it started from when I was little, and it's continued all the way through until now.
Yeah, because I remember seeing the UFO sort of stuff, like books and libraries and that sort of stuff, like, as a kid and that. And it scared the crap out of me, to be honest. Like, you see like the pictures of the aliens going, geez, that's different. Like, you're like, whoa, I don't know if they're real or what, but if they're real, they're going to scare the crap out of me. You sort of fierce down, but then you still got that curiosity going, what if they're real, then where are they? It's like, where do you go from that?
That's an excellent question. It really is. Where are they? Where do they come from? What do they want? I mean, they're the big questions. I don't think the question we've moved beyond. Do they exist? I mean, I think that's been well and truly answered many decades ago. Yes, they do exist, but where do they come from? Why are they here? Well, you can pick your own. There's so many people that are out there talking about it. You can practically choose an angle that suits you.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit like that. Like, I don't think anyone can definitively say what's happening, despite, a lot of people out there who have followers and things like that. I remain a little bit more on the fence than saying that they're all coming from the Pleiades, or, like I'm not that guy, I'm not that guy. For me, they can come from many and multiple places. So, I'd be surprised if they were just coming from the Pleiades, like this is the Star Wars Cantina bar scene, where there's a whole raft of different life forms, intelligent life forms out there, and they're coming here for their own purposes, and that's what got me into it. I wanted to investigate. I wanted to be where the UFOs were. So I'd go stand somewhere, and yep, that occurred here. Wow, it was right there in the sky. Fantastic, that's the stuff I want to do, and I wanted to capture that in my videos too, so that other people could become interested and share the passion and the interest as well. That this is where this occurred, And a lot of these great cases from the past in Australia are sensational. They are absolutely sensational. We don't seem to be having the same level of encounters that we had in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s. Like the 2000 era has gone a little bit quieter. It's evolved in a different way. If you go back through the Australian UFO record and people say to me, Ben, where do UFOs appear? I said, they actually appear everywhere. There's nowhere in Australia that doesn't have a UFO record, that doesn't have a UFO history. It might not be happening now, but it could have happened 20, 30, 10 years, whatever. There has been UFO activity everywhere. Now, the unique thing about UFO investigation is it's not like ghost hunting. Ghost hunting, you can go out to the old asylum, you can go out to the old hotel, you can go there and there's a captive audience of ghosts just sitting there waiting to send all your meters going beep, 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 beep. It's not like that for the UFO investigator. The UFO investigator is normally there long after the events have actually occurred. He's never there they're rarely there on the spot. So when we had our group, we were really sort of like, we tried to get people in all areas of the state, and you could have boots on the ground and be here and there. You cannot be there as a UFO investigator. So you're coming to it from behind. You've got what's left behind: witnesses, photos, videos. That's the stuff that a UFO investigator has. He doesn't have the aliens. They're not hanging around for him to talk to. Or come down to St Kilda where there's a great UFO encounter going on. You get down there and the UFOs aren't waiting around for the investigators to turn up. That's the difference between UFOs and ghosts, And cryptid is the same as UFOs, in my opinion. That they're the same. Like, you just can't go out there, sit in the bush and expect to see a yowie. Like, it just doesn't work. You sit there for a month and not see a yowie, It's the same as with UFOs. You can stare at the sky for a month and see nothing, So it only happens when it's going to happen, if it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people ask me, like, they go, "Oh, where's all the UFO hotspots in Australia?" I said, there really isn't one. Like, people are going to claim they're seeing UFOs every day and every night. It's like, well, what exactly are they seeing to go and call it a UFO? But then it's like, well, if you think about it, there's not really any UFO hotspots because they happen anywhere and everywhere. Like, there's no real spot where you can guarantee where there's going to be one coming out.
No,
that's the worst part. And then they're like, they get a little bit upset with the answer and like, oh, okay, I thought there were hotspots. It's like, well, people make claims. I can't help that.
Yeah. Well, look, there's spots where they reoccur, and there's spots where they reoccur more frequently. Okay, so like down in Melbourne, there's around the Dandenong area and around Narre Warren, which is out of eastern Melbourne. That has had a lot of UFO encounters over the years. Where I live up here in Gippsland, there's been a whole lot of UFO encounters. We have a RAF base down here too, and the RAF base attracts the UFOs like bees to honey. So there's areas, yes, where it can occur, but you can go somewhere else, and there's been an amazing encounter where they don't have regular occurrences. So you can go up on the Hume Highway in 1967, where Ron Hydes was riding his motorcycle, and he's driving along. And he sees this flash, and then all of a sudden he sees a UFO on the ground and two beings standing next to it. Like, that's a high level close encounter of the third kind up in the Albury Wodonga area in 1967. It's a sort of case that you would call a high level strong case with a very credible witness. Now there might not be another UFO appear there again. They do, but like it's really strange. And so when I say they do appear everywhere, they literally do appear everywhere. And that record is out there. And if you go out there and you look at the newspaper articles and go looking through old records, you'll just see that each state of Australia has got great UFO history. Tasmania has amazing UFO history. Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia, Queensland, Northern Territory. It's South Australia. It's everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And Australia on the planet is a big continent in the middle of an ocean. It stands out like nothing else across the. It's just a huge landmass. So it's attracted them for an incredible long period of time, and they appear everywhere.
Yeah, I also want people getting upset. They're going, "Oh yeah, I went to a UFO hotspot. I didn't see anything." It's generally just the right place, right time. You can't guarantee it's going to happen.
You cannot guarantee it's going to happen. Now, this is the thing. Like, you can be out there night after night looking, whether you're looking for a yowie, whether you're looking for a UFO, see nothing. You take the bins out one night, take the bins out on Sunday night, look up, and there could be a spaceship sitting there. It tends to happen when you're not expecting it to happen. Now I know people say that they can will them into existence and make them appear and all that sort of stuff, and that maybe they can, but generally speaking, it doesn't. I don't think it works that way. I think that that they don't. You can't call them down. In my opinion, you can't call them down. They're going to appear where they're going to appear when they want to appear. So you have no control of it, and so therefore, a UFO investigator has always got that frustration of turning up after it's happened. And hopefully the UFO investigator has got physical evidence. Hopefully there is potentially photos and videos. There might be physical effects on people, animals, vehicles, houses. Like UFOs affect all these things, particularly in the high strangeness. I call them the high strangeness encounters that have occurred in Australia. And there's so many of them that are brilliant. And that's the stuff that a UFO investigator can hope to get his hands on and sink his teeth into when he gets there. Lights in the sky are interesting, and they're the majority of the reports. But what do? You go stand there and go, it went from there, it went to there, and it came back over there. Well, that's nice. I'm glad you had the experience. I really am. I'm glad you had the experience. But as an investigator, there's very little that I can do with one report like that. Now, if the following night it occurs again and someone else reports it, or you get multiple reports, it makes it a little bit more interesting. But the investigator still can't do anything because there's an empty sky. And there's probably some iPhone footage that really it could be anything. So those sort of encounters, which are the vast majority, which are the vast majority of reports, basically end up becoming uninteresting for the UFO investigator because there's nothing you can do with lights in the sky unless it's particularly close range or there's some other interesting aspect to it. UFO investigators get a bit mundane with lights in the sky. You want something a bit to sink your teeth in that's a bit stronger than that.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that because I got the Australian UFO sightings page, which gets so many reports coming through there, and we get so many of these people just sharing just a light in the sky. Yeah. And all they share is like, oh, I saw this last night. And it's like, what do you want me to do with that? What can I do with that? Like, you got no details. You don't have it like, what like direction of the sky? Was it moving? What sort of shape was it? What colors was it doing? What sort of time the frame this was? Like, was it early in the morning, in the afternoon, or midnight? Sort of stuff like that. None of that gets provided. And you're like, oh, well, I can't do anything with that. Like, what do you want me to go? Like, it's just a light in the sky. It just shows nothing. And it's like, I want to help you, but you got to provide these details. Like, give us like some sort of characteristic with what this object that you've seen was doing to go and be referred to as a UFO. Like, that's what people need to sort of understand when they start reporting or seeing something. They need to get treated like a police report, basically.
Yes, 100% correct. And what you'll find is that usually it's dark sky with a light, iPhone trying to adjust its lens. The iPhone's trying to adjust its lens to cope with the bright point of light and the surrounding darkness. So therefore it starts doing all sorts of spirals and the colors change and everything like that. So therefore the investigator still has nothing to work with because the camera's not recording it accurately anyway. And the other issue is that you've got nothing to compare it against because there's nothing. You can't see a tree. You can't see a set of power lines. You can't see a building. So you've got no idea how big this light is or how far away it is, how high it is. And people are very bad at guessing height. People can guess distance, but they can't guess height. Now, what I'd say to everybody who's interested in UFOs and looking at things, download the flight tracker apps. And look up at the sky when you see a helicopter or an aircraft, various aircraft, and you get an idea of how high 4,000 feet is, how high 30,000 feet is, how high 12,000 feet is, right? So most of the commercial airliners that ping between Melbourne and Auckland, the Jetstar jets, they're traveling at about 33,000 feet to about maybe 36,000 feet. And then the ones thundering across to America are getting up to around about maybe 39,000 feet. So you get an idea of how height is very hard to judge. How high was it? Oh, I don't know how high it was. And people can't judge that. But if you study the flight tracker apps, you do, and you look at the sky as it's in the sky, you start to get a bit of an idea how high things are. Like air ambulances travel at about 4,000 feet, 4,000 or 5,000 feet. They're not very high off the ground at all. So you start to get that sort of feel. We have the roulettes who fly around here, which are the Air Force trick planes, and because they're based at Sale, and they're traveling around 5,000 to 10,000 feet. So you can get a bit of an idea, and that's very helpful once you start realizing that you're interested in the topic. But if you're just Joe citizen and he says, "Oh, I don't know how high it was, but geez, I don't know what it was," it's very hard for an investigator to figure out what's going on. So therefore, a daylight sighting is better, with a photograph in daylight, not just blue sky either. Like you need trees and everything else in the background, just to give the investigator something to work with, and photographs, when people take things and there was nothing there when they took they didn't see anything when they took the photo. I kind of have issues with those pictures too.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, I have a lot of issues with that. I didn't see it at the time, but there's something in the picture. Well, it could be an insect. It could be anything, and it could be
Lens
a UFO.
flare.
That's just some of my ranting about the perils and pitfalls of investigation.
Yeah.
The other thing that's important about investigating too is determining whether the witness has a pre-held belief in UFOs, or whether they don't have a pre-held belief in UFOs, because the best witnesses of all are those who have no belief in UFOs. They are the best witnesses. Now, you can have a belief in UFOs and still be a credible witness, for sure, but the best witnesses are the ones who have no belief, because when you talk to those people, policemen of the like, farmers, etc., the people who are busy, linesmen, whatever, busy practical people who are working all day long, generally don't have time to think about UFOs, and they come to you and they go, "Oh my God. Oh, what this, it was just, I didn't believe before." Now, that to me is the best witness. They are the witness. But the ones who follow it and sky shot and that all the time, it's I prefer the ones who have no belief, because they've actually had an experience that they can't explain, and then our job is to try help them to understand what they may have experienced, if they experienced anything. But it's I can go on.
Yeah. Oh mate, look, everything you're saying right now is like just everything I'm hearing or seeing basically every day when I'm looking through the page. Because like a lot of people just aren't aware of what is around there, what cameras can do. People are confusing bloody jets with bloody contrails behind them, thinking they're bloody UFOs. It's like, no, stop.
No,
these jets
right.
have been around for the last 60 years now, like with these contrails flying behind them. Like it's a common day thing when the weather is right for these contrails to happen. It's like, no, they're not UFOs. Stop calling them UFOs. That's what you're saying. Like, download the flight tracker. Like that'll help you go on. Determine that it is a bloody plane, and then they go, "Oh, yeah, no, it's a chemtrail." It's like, oh, don't start with the chemtrails. But anyway,
because what the other comment I just want to make on that is, before we go into other things, is that people say, "I got video and I got a photo." Okay, and you say, "Well, that's great, but that's only a small part of the whole picture." So you've got a photo and you've got a video. Okay, well that shows that you've caught something. Okay, but it doesn't explain to me anything else. So what I want to know is, what were you doing before it happened? Where were you? What drew your attention to the object? What made you think it was strange? Was anybody else around? What did the dog do? Okay, so Bill came over. What did Bill say? Like you've got to construct the whole thing, and then we as investigators go on and check flight tracker, and we check all the radar data and all that sort of stuff, and you can say, "Oh, well, no, there wasn't anything in the sky at that particular time. It's not a jet, it's not a military, it's not this. There's no storms predicted, and the wind was blowing from the southwest." Like, we can then go on and say, "Yeah, well, this is something that is something else." But just your photo and your video, it's worth not a lot without all the other information around the pictures. So it's and I say to people all the time, UFO investigating is not the X-Files, right? It's really very much just foot soldier stuff. Like, you've got to do all the checks, do all this. It rarely gets to be that sort of excitement. We're not chasing aliens on the ground very frequently at all, if at all. We're trying to reverse engineer what excited people are telling you about what happened to them. So, but if you have the interest, I encourage anybody to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and like, don't want to deter people from like doing the investigations and stuff, but there also needs to be an understanding of like what needs to go. Like you're saying, with everything, all that information and stuff like. And the idea behind investigations is not to go on, debunk or say that you're wrong with whatever you're seeing. The idea is like, we're going to try and critically analyze and like determine, what is it something that was misidentified. We have to rule out all possibilities first, like planes, like you're saying, planes, jets, ISS, space station, Starlink, something like that. All these things need to get ruled out first. So, or unless it's doing something absolutely massively defying in nature, then yeah, of
Mm.
course, then we've got nothing to go by. So, well, okay, they did some weird shit, but it's beyond our conventional sort of capabilities. But if you like saying like a light in the sky, if we can try and rule out whatever that is first, and then go, all right, look, you might have something here. We're not going to say it's a UFO at this point or an alien craft because there's no real, definitive sort of image or undeniable evidence that you've provided. It's just it's one of those things. You just need to really understand what goes on behind the scenes of an investigation kind of thing.
Yeah, and I say to people all the time, don't if you're going to look up at the sky, you got to understand what's up there,
Yeah.
and what's meant to be up there. Planets, sun, moon, satellites, meteors, space junk. That's the stuff that's up there. That's the stuff that's up there all the time. And don't forget that everything that man makes travels in a straight line all the time. Everything we make travels in a straight. It's going up, it's going across. We don't do things that do this unless they're out of control.
Yeah,
So,
not in a split second anyway.
Exactly. So, all human-made things travel in a straight line. That's what they do. So, if an object appears here, then stops, appears here, hovers, spins, does something strange, well, that's different, But that could be a low star on the horizon where the atmosphere is playing with the image, and you put your phone on that. Wow, it looks like New Year's Eve, the fireworks. So, you've just got to be really careful about all the information and input that's coming into us as investigators. But once you've done all that, and you can come away with some really good stuff, and there's just been Australia's right up there for some of the best UFO encounters in the world, right up there with any of the other world's cases. We've had stuff here that's just as exciting, just as strange, and and Australia has a big part to play in whatever the UFO mystery is.
Oh, bloody oath. I like to imagine also add in too, like when you're taking photos or videos of an object in the distance there, you need to take into account your actual hand movements as well. Because like a lot of people try and zoom in and they're thinking the craft's bloody moving around in the camera lens or the image, thinking that's the object moving around. It's like, no, it's your hands moving around. Like so the best bet is to go and sit on something solid, like and try and brace it tightly
Yep.
as hard as you can, basically try and keep it in the image there with minimal movement. And if you do know your movement, like try and pay attention to your movements. Obviously, go, oh, look, that is the actual camera moving, not the actual object moving. That makes a big difference.
Oh,
Like,
you're
I've
not
had
wrong.
people there going,
Yeah.
like, oh, no, it's the object moving. It's like, I'm pretty sure it's the camera moving. Anyway.
Yeah, and when you zoom, it's even worse. So
Yeah.
it's hard to get good footage. And the other problem also is that half the time you're not expecting it to be there, so you're fumbling your phone out of your pocket. You've got to get it. You got to type in your passcode. You got to open up the app. You got to do all that sort of stuff, and then you're standing there with shaking hands and you're shooting something that's really amazing. So I do sympathise with people who have UFO encounters, because I've been there myself. I've had those encounters. I know what it's like to be unexpectedly surprised by something that shouldn't be there.
Yeah. No, that's it. Look, that's the thing. Like, I suppose, like, as you're saying before, like, it's least expected, whatever it is. And, you're in the moment. You're sort of like, oh, what the hell's that? Like saying you're fumbling for it. You're trying to get something there. Or if you have time to get your phone out for it, that's the other hard part. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
100%, 100%.
So yeah, like I said, like you're saying, like sympathizing, like we're not trying to debunk you there or trying to say you're crazy or whatnot. We're just trying to get a better understanding of what you are seeing and trying to get a better explanation and understanding, basically. So, but anyway, now look, you've had your own encounters, mate. Let's go and touch on these. Well, I'm guessing there's got to be something decent there for someone from your history there with all this investigation. It's got to be pretty mind blowing, I'd like to think.
Yeah, I think one of the first encounters I had was when I was living out of town, out in a country house, and I have Jack Russells, and I had a Jack Russell at the time, and he wanted to go outside at like 2 a.m. to do the old relieving, and I opened up the back door, let him out, and I happened to walk outside, and I went down to where the clothesline was, and I just stood there waiting while he did his thing, and I looked up in the sky, and there were these two objects together, and they would have been as big as football fields, and they traveled from north to south, from horizon to horizon, beside each other, in what you would call as fast as you can turn your head. So anything even our fastest jets in the sky don't cross the horizon as fast as you can turn your head. So these were two silent, big, oval-shaped white lights at high altitude, and they went from north to south, just bing, from horizon to horizon, and they just shot straight across the sky. Now, it wasn't shooting stars, it wasn't meteors, it wasn't space junk, because I've seen all of those things. These things were defined, round, circular, silvery light, and just went bang. And there was not a sound, not a sound. And I thought, wow, that is just incredible. What the hell was that? And I went through everything in my mind, and that would have been about 1998 or sometime around then. And I thought to myself, there is that north-south flight path is not very common where I live. Most of the air traffic goes east-west, and this thing was going from north to south. Well, there's two things: north-south, just straight across the horizon, and bang. They would have been heading for Antarctica. Like there's nowhere else for them to go down there. It's just straight across the sky, fast as anything, totally silent. And I thought, there you go. There's something strange in the sky. Another time I looked up and I saw this, again, a circular silvery light was traveling across the sky. It stopped. It blinked out. And then it appeared again a little bit further on. It blinked back in again. And then it stopped. And then it disappeared. And I thought, what the hell was that? It didn't travel, wasn't traveling fast. It was directly overhead, and it seemed to appear, disappear, appear, disappear, appear, disappear. That was really weird. And then I had what I would consider almost to be a min light encounter at the same place where I was at. I was standing out in the veranda one night, and these two lights came into view, and they were just interplaying with each other. They were just sort of rotating like that, and they were only at tree height, which was quite interesting. And they were quite big. They would have been, I would have said, basketball size, or medicine ball size. And they just seemed to rotate around each other. And they were just traveling along the top of the gum trees, heading from south to north. And the treetops were lit up as these two lights just tumbled across each other. Total silence. And they just drifted out across the Great Dividing Range at tree height. So that was a really, really unusual encounter. And another one I had was only a couple of years ago, probably about 2020 or so. And my sister rang me up, and she lives about 15 minutes away from where I am sitting right now. And she says to me, Ben, there's either UFOs or ghosts above our house right now. Now, my sister is really straight and down the line. She just doesn't believe in UFOs, doesn't have any time for any of that. And so I said, right. So I jumped in my car. And the 15-minute trip I did in about 7 minutes. And I got over there, drove down their driveway, and sure enough, just off their back veranda, these lights were going across the sky like this. They were going back and forth, back and forth. Now, I estimated they were traveling around about maybe about a kilometre at the most. And they were going back and forth, back and forth. And what they'd do, and they weren't just going back and forth, it would go from, I'm trying to do it with my hands opposite on what the camera's giving me. It'd go here to here, like it was just ping. It was instant. Oh. It was instant. There was no speed up, no slow down. It was just an instant speed transferal. And then when they got to the other side, they would divide into others. So one would cross the sky, like I'll do slow motion version. They would cross the sky like that, and then when it got to the other point here, it would break into three more, and then those three would dart back across the sky. And these were probably about the size of houses. And we watched it for an hour and a half. We sat there watching this performance, and the lights were going back and forth, and there would have been up to at least, maybe I'm estimating, up to about 25 of the lights just going back and forth across this particular area of the sky not far from my sister's house. Now, as they were doing that, and we're watching it, like we felt no fear, there's no noise, there's no sound, and they were rather low lit. So they almost had sort of like a stealth kind of a edge around them. So they were about as bright as clouds. So if you think of white clouds on a full moonlit night, they were about that in intensity, and they were shaped sort of in a round style shape, round or sort of just off round shape, maybe sort of like, well, it's hard to do with here, maybe sort of like that. And they're going back and forth. And we're just watching it and saying, when's this going to end? When's this going to end? I'm trying to film it, but the iPhone wasn't picking it up because they were not high intensity brightness. And what happened was we watched it for an hour and a half. They kept going across this same patch of sky. Then they all of a sudden, they all lined up together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All lined up together. And then they all flashed at once. All the lights flashed, and then they disappeared. And I said,
Bloody hell.
It's over. And that was just a couple of years ago. And so that's my actual UFO experiences that I've seen, and that was the best one I've had. Like, it went for a long. 3 of us sat there watching it, and it was just it was incredible to see. And I hadn't seen anything like it before. Like, it was a very so it's not a silver disc. It's not not orange lights in the sky. It's just this. They were traveling back and forth, dividing, and then the others would travel back and forth, and then that big sort of line up, big bright flash, and then they disappeared. What the hell was that? Which made me think it was a dimensional experience, because I'm thinking these things are blinking in and blinking out of our reality. And I think that's what it is. I think they actually can come into our reality and they can leave our reality, in, out, in, out. And I think that's what we were seeing. And my sister had told me another time where she looked out the window at her house and she'd seen this, what she described the sky as boiling. So it looked like the sky was boiling in one particular spot in the sky, like it was shimmering and boiling. She described that to me, and she said she felt a bit spooked when she saw that. But she said to me, I believe in UFOs now, Ben. I believe in them now. Like, there's no doubt that they exist, but she had no time for them at all before that. So there's that. And I've had a couple of strange nighttime experiences as well. Once was going back a few years where I was asleep in my bed and I had all the windows open, or the blinds open, full moon night, and I'm sleeping, and I wake up about 2 a.m. and I can feel something pushing against the bed. The bed's actually being pushed, and something's leaning over the top of me. So I'm laying in my bed, it's leaning over the top of me, and I spin around in my bed, and there's a hooded entity standing there with a hood on, and there's this spiral of energy that's going between it and me, and it's coming down to me, this spiral of energy. And the bed's being shaken as I'm laying there. And I just screamed and leaped out of the bed, and the whole thing just disappeared. And I was shit scared, absolutely shit scared. And I decided I left the light on for the rest of the night, searched the entire house from top to toe. I thought it was a burglar. At first, I thought it was a burglar, that someone had broken into the house, was in the bedroom, and was rifling through the bedroom drawers. That was my initial impression. And then I realized, once I saw this hooded thing standing there, and this spiral of energy, I thought, that's really strange. And then it just disappeared. I just shit myself, and slept with the light on for the rest of the night, searched the entire house. The rest of that week, I slept with the hall light on the entire time, and was just terrified. And then a couple of years later, I had another experience during the day when I was outside playing basketball. And I had a basketball hoop, and I was just shooting basketballs one Saturday morning about 10:30. And I felt like I was being watched. And I looked over, and standing next to my shed was this black sliver of what you would call, I call it night. There was just a sliver of night standing next to my car. And I looked at it, and around the edges of it, it had sparkles, and these sparkles were going around the edge of it. And it was almost like it was some sort of a gateway or something. And I moved over, and as I moved over towards it, it actually glided across the front of my shed, and it glided around the back of the shed. And I came running down the other side to intersect it on the other side, and it disappeared. And at its closest, it was probably around about 6 foot, 7 foot tall by only about 3 foot wide. But it was like someone had taken a piece of night and just plonked it there in the daytime. And I thought to myself, I was more curious than scared. And I thought to myself, is that some sort of spirit energy or something like that? I wasn't sure what that was either. So that was another sort of a strange encounter that I had. And I had done some regressions around both those encounters as well. So interesting.
Yeah, bloody oath. Jesus. That's spooky. So it's like that's not the first time I've heard the whole hooded figures over people's beds and that, but the swirling sort of energy between that's pretty new, I think.
Yeah,
From
well,
my
how
memory
black
of
your
watching.
logo is, like around your logo, it was as black as that, about 7 foot tall, standing next to my car, and it had shimmering light running around the edge of it. So sort of like it was this shimmering, sparkling light going around, and I'm going, you know, like that, just to, is there a sty in my eye or something like this? And then when I moved towards it, it instantly glided away. Like it just glided away, and I'm following it and watching it going across the front of the shed. So the shed's a grey shed, and here's this black thing like this just traveling across the front of the shed, just gliding across about a foot off the ground, just gliding across. Then it goes down the back side of the shed, and the shed you could go all the way around. So I run down the opposite side of it. My heart's palpitating. And then I got to the edge, it wasn't there, it gone. So I thought, was that like an Aboriginal spirit? Is it like a gateway? Like, I don't know what it was, but I wasn't scared or anything, but it was a really strange encounter. And so for someone like me who does have a fairly level-headed sort of approach to investigation, having those personal experiences they just proved to me that there's more to all this than we all think. It's not just paying bills and mortgages. Like, there's way more to this than what this whole life, this whole universe, this whole energy is really complex. We don't understand it, and there's a whole lot more for us to learn.
Yeah. So I got a quick question here in the comments there. Like, where was your with the row of lights? Where was that located, roughly?
As in the town, or is that the
town.
question? Yeah, that was
Yeah.
here in Bairnsdale, where I live. So Bairnsdale's 3 hours east of Melbourne. It's around about 25,000 people in West Bairnsdale, to be precise, where my house was, and that's where it occurred at 10:30 in the morning on a Saturday. Wide awake, totally lucid. This is not people say, it happened at 3 a.m. Oh yeah, just had a dream. You just had a dream, you silly bugger. So no, it wasn't like that. It was middle of the day, 10:30 in the morning, wide awake, and I felt something was watching me.
Oh, yeah. Actually, no, I think it was the lights. Your sister's place. I think that was the one for the question on that one.
Yeah, that's about 15 minutes out of town here. She lives about 15 minutes in a little area called Elliswood, just out the back of Bairnsdale. And where I had those other encounters is probably only about 10 minutes north of that. So in a relatively close zone. In fact, my whole area has got a lot of UFO history around here in East Gippsland. It is been a major UFO scene. I could talk to you for hours about just what's happened around here. And it's all high quality.
That's good. That's what we want. But yet, obviously, no bloody videos and footage of it.
That's the problem. Like, this is what I talk to people about when these things occur. You don't necessarily have your phone on you. You don't necessarily have a camera with you. And we had our phones with us when we sat out there watching these things ping-ponging back and forth across the sky, but they didn't have the luminosity that was bright enough for the iPhone to pick them up. I did a little sound recording of us listening, of us like just as it was happening. But there was no way you could actually photograph it because they were just, they were illuminated like clouds, no brighter than that. And at the distance they were, you'd take a photo and it just comes up, the sky just comes up black. They weren't bright enough to see, but they were going bing, bang, bing across the sky, and just from point A to point B instantly. Then would divide into two or three more, and then they'd all take off back the same direction. Very, very unusual. And we're there going, it's not guys with torches down the paddock, shining torches back and forth. They've been doing it for an hour and a half now. Like, no, nothing like that. It's not insect clouds. It's nothing like that. And that night there was these big white, cumulonimbus clouds in the sky, and it was moonlit. So they were up there, and these things were below the clouds. They were below cloud height. They were just above the trees, going back and forth, back and forth. We watched them for an hour and a half, and I would have given anything to have been able to capture them. I even wanted to go out in the paddock and walk underneath them. And I said to my brother-in-law, I'm going underneath them. That's what I said to him. I said, I'm going underneath them. He said, oh, no, don't go out in that paddock. The grass is like up to your tits. Don't walk out there. You're just going to trip over. So he convinced me not to go out there, but like I was all but going to go out there and stand underneath them, try to get a little bit closer to it. Yeah. But I also thought if you go any closer, it might all disappear. Like, it's like it's like approaching birds, you know.
Yeah,
like
no,
you
you don't want to scare them away.
you know. Yeah, you haven't got that ability. But the other thing I'll say about that encounter was that they were doing their thing. They didn't care about us. That there was no reaction to us whatsoever, you know. And like we're shining torches and stuff like that. There's nothing. They couldn't give tuppenny that we were there. You know, these things were in our reality. They were going back and forth. They were doing whatever they were doing. They were doing it for their own purpose. And the only thing I thought about it was why did this happen? And I thought maybe it's some sort of power up or something. You know, maybe they're generating energy or something. You know, because when they all went brightly lit at the end, pow 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 pow, and just that flash, that brilliant flash, you just go, what the hell was that? And then bang, nothing, just gone.
So, do you have any idea like what like they might have been doing? Like I may say like a power up maybe, but like could there have been something else that they're possibly trying to achieve?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like this is all at low altitude. They're going from 500-600 meters back and forth across the sky in one location up to started off with like 5 of them or something like that, and then you end up to about 25 of them going back and forth across the sky. And we're sitting there going, what the hell is this? You know, what are they doing? And we're going through all the logical explanations. I've studied the sky for many, many years. So I know exactly what's up there, what should be there, and, what's happening. I will tell you a funny story, though, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
And they're just above the trees, back and forth, silent, fast as lightning, like bang, 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 back and forth, dividing into others, bang, bang, back and forth. And you just go, what the hell is the point of this? What is this purpose? And I thought to myself, maybe it's not about us. Maybe if this is from another dimension, maybe this is their own weight, their own gravity, maybe it's their own force that is bringing them into our reality. You know, maybe it's something about the power of them that is bringing them. I'm not saying by accident necessarily, but or by design, but they're coming into our reality, using our reality or their movement is a consequence of that. And then bang, then it disappeared. And they didn't fly off. They didn't do that. It was just light, bang, over. Now I'll tell you the funny story.
Yeah.
One night I worked for a place and I had a van, and I saw this low green light on the horizon, and I thought to myself, gee, that's a bit strange. There's a green light. And I'm driving along and I'm looking at it and I'm going, nah, that's not normal. That's just not normal. And it was east of town. And so I drove through town heading towards it. I drove out of town not 10 kilometers, probably about 4 kilometers out of town. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, what the hell is that? Well, what it was it was Jupiter, but the van had a blue strip along the top of the windscreen.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm looking at it through the blue strip of the top of the windscreen. And it was only when I actually ducked my head down and I went, oh, you dickhead. Like, it's just Jupiter. It's just Jupiter. But through the blue shield on the top of the windscreen, windscreen's got that blue color across the top.
Yeah.
It turned the yellow into green. And there's a little tip for your people. Make sure you're not looking through something that's looking through something else. And then I realized I was silly and that I'd been chasing Jupiter. But police have chased Venus.
Yeah.
So, that's happened as well. So very easy for misidentification, and 100%. And because pareidolia is such a part of the human experience, where we look for patterns and see things that aren't there, it's just, mine was just a simple stuff up, But pareidolia is a whole other thing. You think it's there, and it's not really. It's just a pattern that you're perceiving.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the paranormal world, so I feel, gets a lot of things wrong.
Yeah,
where the pareidolia, where they're thinking they're seeing faces and patterns in the images, and they go, oh yeah, no, it's some sort of spirit or something like their face is coming through the image or something like that. It's like, it's just the pixelations and the grain and all sorts of stuff, and just throws everyone out. And like if people want to believe that, so be it, believe it. But it's just as long as they understand.
Back when I first started investigating, I was going to give you 2 experiences. A guy was sending me photos, and he said, a UFO crashed near my house. And I said, well, it's pretty interesting. And he started sending me Google Map images of where this UFO had crashed. And you look at the image and there's absolutely nothing there, right? But he's looking at the images going, no, it crashed. It's there. And I said, oh, whereabouts is this? He's like, oh, he lives in central New South Wales somewhere. And I thought, well, I'm not just about to hop in the car and head up there, like it's, that'd be an 8-10 hour drive from here, right? It ain't going to happen, And he starts sending me other photos, and he's sending me photos of just gum trees, like just trees in the bush. And he's circling out what he's seeing, aliens sitting in the trees, right? And all it is shadows among the eucalyptus leaves, And he says, there's an alien head, there's an alien head, there's an alien head. And I'm just going, they are not alien heads. This is just you looking at a photo and seeing what you want to see in that photo. Perfectly natural reaction. And I had another experience where people contacted me and they said, oh, we're seeing UFOs. And I said, oh, yeah, okay, well, what's happening? And she says, oh, we see them every night. And that's a warning for me from the get-go.
Yep.
When someone says to me they see UFOs every night or all the time, they're alarm bell ringers in my head, because I can understand people have regular experiences, but when someone says they see UFOs every day and every night, I go, oh, it's a bit of a stretch, really,
Yep.
So, and we end up going down there and visiting, and it's a long story, but we're out there in the backyard, and he says, there's a UFO up there now. And I go, oh, is there? Yep. I go, oh, where is it? He says, it's behind that cloud. And I said, oh, is it? He said, yep, it's behind that cloud. And I said, what? And I said, what's it doing? He said, it's creating chemtrails. Ah, that's what it's doing. Yep, it's behind the cloud and it's creating chemtrails. Oh, well, how do you know it's there? Oh, I can feel it. I can feel that it's there. Okay. Well, it doesn't leave a lot for me to work with, because there's a cloud. I can see a cloud, but there's no evidence there's anything behind it. And there's no evidence it's doing anything. There's nothing there at all. So it's about, as investigators, being able to sort of discern what is real or a genuine experience versus what is perhaps fantasy.
Yeah. And the hard part in that, like, you cop so much flack from it too. Like, I'm sure you've had people like abuse the crap out of you as well. They're going, no, you're full of shit. You don't know what you're talking
100%.
And it's like,
I've had people abuse me. That's just what they do.
yeah. And that's the worst part of this whole thing that we do. Like, we're trying to like go, all right, look, we're trying to help you explain something here, and you're trying to tell me something. They're like, I can't do anything with this there, or I'm telling them something that's probably the most likely answer to this, and they go, oh, no, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're fucking talking about. You're a dickhead. Like, you're talking shit. And it's like, I'm sorry, but you approached me to try and help out what you're trying to see here. And I'm giving you the most logical, plausible answer here, and you're not liking that, so you abuse me. Like, thank you, but no thank you. But I'm willing to help you out and like give you an answer, but don't abuse me for it.
Yeah, that happens, and then people go find someone who gives them the answer that they want.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And that's just what happens. And they go, oh, we spoke to those guys, but they didn't believe us. They didn't believe us. Can you believe that they didn't believe us? And then we'll go speak to someone else. Well, they did believe us.
Yeah. It's like, well, what are they feeding you? And it's like, and then that just really throws away the credibility of the whole UFO community. Then when people just go and aren't, like keeping things level grounded, genuine, critical. Like, I don't know, like, you can take drugs into the counts and all sorts of stuff and that, but, or, people's mentalities, but like, you don't want to call them crazy or whatnot, but you just want to like get an understanding of what they are trying to see and trying to break down if it is a actual reality of what they're seeing is true, or if it's, like I said, fantasy or something like that. But you hope it's not fantasy in that sort of regard.
Well, I always find that often a lot of the best cases are when someone comes to you and they go, I don't really know who to talk to. I don't even know if I really want to talk about it. But something really, I'm not sure that I really want to talk about it, but I think I'm ready to talk about it. And you sort of go, well, that's almost promising, because they're obviously agonizing over what the experience was, rather than coming to you so excited with it's a UFO, it's a UFO, isn't it? So it just, so reluctance can actually be a good thing when someone comes forward to you and say, well, I'm trusting you to come forward and talk to you about it, but at the same time, I'm not sure that I'm really ready to talk about it. I think I'm ready to talk about it, and it was terrifying or whatever it was. And, I find that's often, something that's a bit more encouraging as well. But I also find too that there's UFO sightings, and then there's abductions, which is kind of two different sports, in my opinion. Like, there's UFO investigation, and then there's abduction scenarios and that sort of stuff. It's hard to do both of those. It's very hard. You have to really do one or the other. You can't sort of dabble in in alien encounters and alien abductions. I think that's something that you need to be in boots and all and specialize in that. Now, I always found that with that sort of thing, it was incredibly time consuming to talk to someone on the phone for 4 hours about an abduction scenario. And I think you do need some level of maybe training in that area as well, as in maybe psychology or whatever. It does need that type of aspect brought into that side of it. Whereas UFO investigation is not quite at the same level, because if you're going to talk to someone about an ongoing abduction scenario that's happened throughout their lives, then you need to build a huge level of trust. The investigator has to believe the story and believe the supporting evidence around it and have the time to invest in it. And you also have to provide a deep support base for people in that environment. Whereas UFO investigation, in terms of photos and physical evidence and stuff, two different areas. I've never felt that they belong together, even though they are related in the same field. I don't think that you can claim to be an alien abduction researcher and also a UFO researcher. I think you have to really be clearly define what you are, what you can do, and where it all begins and ends.
Yeah. But you sort of can dabble a little bit in both worlds there, but like you say, it's hard to sort of really focus on the one.
Yeah.
And I suppose when it comes to sightings and investigations, that's probably the easiest one of the whole lot of them, because you can actually go and follow the evidence a little bit on that one there. And when it comes to abductions, there's it's all witness testimony. You might get a little bit of evidence there with maybe like a marking or a scratch or something like that. Or in Peter Curry's case, you got a bit of a hair left behind or something like that, if you're lucky enough to even get that.
Yes.
But it's like you said, it's hard to go and really follow down both worlds.
Yeah.
Both times. Yeah. So hang on. So we've got some questions here. Where'd it go? Geez, where'd that go? I did have one here. No, I've lost it. It's probably just going back through the comments here where people are basically saying what they've had. So I've got Daniel here saying he has footage of the fireballs over. Oh, sorry, no, people have footage of fireballs over the world and have seen them up close there. He's had some. Where did he go? He's up top here. My encounter was right above me. They were like mini suns. It was still daylight. Sun was up just above roof height. No mistaking what it was.
Absolutely.
I'd love to get more information about that sort of stuff. A bit more information about it, obviously.
Yeah.
A bit more characteristics about how they want things. Definitely.
That's a very common encounter. Fireballs above the sky, in the sky, traveling together or singular or multiple. Very common report. One of my good friends has had that experience as well. So yes, very much a commonly reported style and type of UFO that definitely isn't space junk burning up or something like that. So it's a definite encounter right across the deserts in Australia. There's heaps of reports of fireballs in the deserts, which you could say fireball / min light. That happens. It's a very common report, very common, and you're very lucky to see it too.
Yeah, absolutely. The closest I've seen is there weren't fireballs. There's two orange lights from how I was looking at it, two orangey reddish sort of balls. And my initial thought was I've got two fighter jets flying side by side in formation, basically, because that's how it looked. One was just a little bit ahead of each other.
Yeah.
And in formation, flying from west to east. I think it was actually more of a northwest to southeast. Cruise along, but the same sort of speed as what you think of the plane would. So reasonably fast. So they're hooking along, but not really defying anything that we can do. And just went all the way across the other side of the horizon, and no navigation lights, no sound, because I was in a machinery at the time. Other people saw it as well. They saw no, went directly on top of them, no noise whatsoever. And this is at 11 o'clock at night, mind you. And the fact that there was no noise, just straight line. One of me thought, it was two fighter jets side by side, no navigation lights, nothing. And I'm just seeing the afterburners. And it's well, what was that? If they were fighter jets, we would have heard, guys would have heard the noise for sure flying over the top of them. They're bloody loud. And it's just one of those mysteries. What the hell was that?
It's a very common report. I've read about them, many examples of it through Australia's record, and I've studied across the states. It's a very common style report. So yeah, he's very lucky to have that encounter.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I hope he does follow up with that. But I did find one there before. The question I was looking for, wouldn't have lost it again. My bad. It was basically with the light that you saw blinking in and out in the sky.
Yeah,
Um, Now, I'm sure you would have seen sort of like geostationary or the geostationary satellites or satellites that are a bit further out,
yep,
but just sort of pick up the light and rotating, sort of
yep.
come along. But you're saying it was stopping. Is that
Oh
right?
yeah, this is just above the trees. Like this is, if I had to estimate how high above the trees they were maybe about 100 meters above the trees.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're not
No, I
you're
mean
not.
the one that you said you saw it like blinked in and out. I think it was
Oh yeah, that was directly overhead. Size wise, it would have been massive because it was probably at least twice the size of what you'd call an airliner. Circular in shape, silver color, with a bit of a glow around it as well, and just about that speed. Stop, blink, out, travel a bit further, stop, blink, out, and then sort of back and forth across a couple of times. Then it just disappeared. And I've seen satellites, International Space Station, all the regular, usual suspects that are up there. And this is well before the Starlink satellites were up there, so nothing like that. And all satellites and all International Space Station, they just track on their one path, very
yeah,
predictably, very much at the same speed, and that's to the point where they disappear. And if you see the satellites around about dusk, then you'll see their solar panels reflecting and glinting as they turn in the sky around dusk or dawn. So I'm very familiar with all that. So it's taking what is not familiar up in the sky and going, well, it's so I always go, is it a bird? Is it a plane? Like, you go through all those, you tick them all off before you go, well, I don't know what it was. And at the end of the day, that's what you're left with. I don't know what it
mm,
was. I don't know what I saw, but I can tell you that it didn't tick any of the boxes that would apply to every other logical, man-made or natural phenomena that's out there. So, yeah, very just a strange experience.
yeah. No, that's all right. Because in my head, I was like trying to determine if it's like a geostationary satellite, maybe because like they're a lot further out. You're not going to see the whole
Yep,
the actual object itself, like, but you will see it sort of blinking a little bit.
yep,
You usually
yeah.
count down
No,
where it's
you're
going to go
not
and
blinking
make a
or
blink, but
rotating, like not like that. It's
yep,
traveling, stopping,
and then change of
drops
direction.
out. Same direction, but it was like it was there, gone, there, gone, there, gone, and very big too. Like, for its size, it was quite a big object in the sky at high altitude.
Right, so you couldn't detect, like, couldn't say it would be the reflection of the light being a slow rotation with the light reflecting brightly, or you like is this actual physical object that you're
A
sort of seeing with that sort of size?
physical object with an internal glow.
Okay.
So it didn't come across like a reflective type of a thing. Like a reflection light is usually quite a hard light. This was
Mm.
all a soft, solid glow.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Hmm.
yeah. Okay. Oh, that's just we can throw it. Rule out all bloody satellites then. So, bugger, I thought I might have had one for you. No, that's good. That's cool.
No, that's all good, mate.
But like, what about the one like the two that were like a football sized bloody objects there? Like, did anyone see these things at all? Like, any reports on this sort of thing? Like, or even
It's
the
like
other ones
2
that you've
a.m.
had mentioned? Like, no one's mentioned anything or seen anything going similar
No.
around that time.
Oh, look, I have a little theory, right? And because of the RAF base that's nearby, I think that between, let's say, between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., right? That's a time when most human beings are asleep, right?
Yeah.
And it's before the time the farmers are getting up. The farmers are getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to start what they're doing. But around 4 o'clock, a lot of them are still not active. And that 3 o'clock window is a really particularly important time. 3 a.m. is a very important time when it comes to UFOs and strange activity, whether it's paranormal activity of any kind. 3 a.m. is a magic hour,
Hmm.
right? And it's a magic hour for a reason. And I say between 2 and 4 is the magic hour when it comes to nighttime encounters, because at that time there's not a lot of activity on the face of on the face of the earth if you're in the night side of that. So a lot of objects can travel around out there, and you say, well, and I get this all the time with UFO reports, not just my sightings but other sightings too. People say, well, did anyone else see it? Was there any other reports? And they go, no, and it's even stranger if you get a report from the city, like someone was standing in the city and they see a UFO and they go, well, thousands of people must have seen it.
Yeah,
well, no, right. Not really. And I'll tell you one good reason why. People don't look up, right? They generally don't look up. People generally
busy on the phones.
Not look up in their day-to-day business. They don't look up. I look up all the time, but people generally don't look up. And you'll say, yeah, well, how come no one saw it? And say, well, that is a mystery. That's part of the mystery too, particularly when you get daylight encounters over huge population centers, or someone gets video over there, but there's no one else reports it. It happens all the time, let alone at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. when majority of the planet is asleep, or the majority of our side is asleep. There's no one out there. Now, also, a lot of reports around here are of UFOs following cars. And there's an area about an hour from where I live here to the west where people have reported to me, even up into very modern times, that they're driving along a particular stretch of road and there's lights comes down from behind and follows the car. I just saw a message on the phone there that came up in the comments. Thanks for saying g'day, and I read the message. That UFOs following cars in the nighttime is very common, and that happens right across Australia. But is an area where I live where there is just it happens regularly. It's a regular occurrence where cars are followed in the night by strange lights. It comes drifting down, follows the car or next to the car, and then moves away from the car. It's a very common report around here, and a lot of people don't even report it because it's too strange, or they're scared, or they don't know. Now, in that same area, there's been cases of water going missing. So, water tanks being drained, lagoons being drained of water overnight, instantly. And one of the most famous cases around here was on a farm called White Acres. And a farmer woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning and all his cows were going absolutely crazy. They were running around, going absolutely crazy. And he looked outside, he went outside his house, he looked and he saw this strange object traveling along, going low above his sheds. And he thought it was an airplane coming down to have a crash landing. But he watched it go along and all the cows have scattered. And he hopped on his little motorbike and he drove off after this light. And this light went out and hovered above one of his water tanks, and it sat above the water tank. And he could see that it wasn't an aircraft. It had rows of portholes around it and it was circular in shape. Then the object sat on top of the water tank for seemingly only a few seconds, and then it took off the tank and landed next to the tank, and it sat on the ground rotating, and he's driven up on his bike as close as he could. Then it's made this pulse sound, and it's knocked him back, and the object's taken off, and all the cow patties have fallen off it as it's flying away. Now, his watch stopped at 1 a.m. when the encounter occurred. The water tank was a 10,000-gallon water tank, and it was completely drained of all its water. In fact, the next day, there was only a swirled-up eddy of mud in the center of the tank where all the water, 10,000 gallons, had disappeared in a few seconds as this object had sucked up all the water out of the tank. There was a landing circle on the ground next to the tank that stayed there for nearly a year, and he was sick with radiation sort of symptoms for about 5 days afterwards, had a series of weird nightmares, and the cows had taken off through the fences, and it took them a week to get the cows back, and the cows were completely spooked for many weeks after that. Now, that was a high-level encounter with animal effect, physical effect, and physical evidence as well. And so recently I got to go to that property and make a video out there, and I recounted that entire encounter that occurred. Now, at that time, that's one incident, and that was regarded as one of Australia's best UFO encounters by Paul Norman, who was a long-time researcher here in Victoria. And that encounter is well known around the world. It's called the Rosedale the Rosedale water tank encounter. At the same time, around the district, water was being taken from tanks and from dams and from lagoons at night time, and there were strange marks left on the ground. And this is only an hour from where I live. So, and all those encounters only occurred within 20 minutes of the Sale RAF base as well. So that RAF base has been a magnet for all sorts of strange activity. And now that area is a big dairying area. There's lots of dairy farms in there. It's a very rich, lush green grass. So these craft are attracted to this area for water. They're taking water. They may have taken stock too, although I haven't had a direct report of that, but it's certainly possible. And they've followed cars around at night. And I could talk for another 2 hours about encounters just within an hour from where I live.
Mate, I'm going to take you up on that one. I guess you on another time, mate. We're going to go and talk about all your encounters or your investigations and that. Like, I'm going to look forward to that. It's going to be good.
I'll give you one more. I'll just give you one more. It's only short. This was in 1972. A policeman in Sale is a town where the RAF base is. A policeman in Sale at night time was doing his patrols, and he'd gone out of town. This is about 4 a.m., around that time. He drives out of town in the patrol car, and he pulls up to the furthest point where he turns around to come back, and he stops the car there. And it's a place called Napper's Corner, which there's nothing there. It's just known colloquially as Napper's Corner. And he sees an object on the ground in a paddock nearby, and the object, it's a light, and then the light rises up off the ground into the sky, and it flies away. And he thinks this is a bit strange. So he drives back to the RAF base, which is not far, which is from there to be like a 10-minute drive, 15-minute drive. He drives back to the RAF base, and he speaks to the intelligence officer at the base. This is in 1971, and he's 72, sorry. And he says to the intelligence officer, "You guys got anything up there tonight?" And the intelligence officer says, No, we're not flying anything around out there tonight at all. And he says, "Well, I just saw something strange just out at Napper's Corner. This light was in a paddock on the ground, and it took up and it took off. I thought it was a bit strange." So the intelligence officer hops in the car with him, and they drive back out to the same location. They stop, they get out of the car. Now, from the east, they see a light approaching, and this light comes towards the patrol car. The light comes over the patrol car, and it shines a brilliant light down onto the car and the two men standing beside the car, and they're looking up at this bright light shining down. Then the object moves away, and the light that it shone remained illuminating the car and the men after the object had disappeared.
What?
Mm-hmm. True story.
What the hell was that? What was with the light?
Yep.
Staying there.
This is what's so fascinating about this particular case is that the object has shone a light. The men are staring up into this light. The patrol car's illuminated. The intelligence officer and the policeman are standing next to each other, fully bathed in light. The object flies away, and then the light remains around the car for several minutes after the object has gone.
Did they mention every day? Did they mention any missing time or anything like that, or if there was mention of the time frames between this whole thing happening?
No, I've tried to find the policeman, but it's just too long ago.
Yeah, he's probably carked it, unfortunately.
It's too long ago. And that is just one example of high strangeness encounters around here. And you would not read about this encounter. This is only because I found an old newspaper article on it when it was reported in the local paper that this had actually occurred. So it was Constable Kevin Jarvis or K Jarvis I'm assuming it was Kevin. Could have been Ken. Constable K Jarvis reported that, and that's the name of the actual constable at the time. So here you've got policeman, RAF man, both out there. You couldn't get any better, could it? Both out there, and this light leaves a trace of light after the object's gone. Man, that just blows me away.
Yeah. That sort of reminds me the old newspaper clippings that you mentioned there. Is that Facebook site still going there with the old UFO clippings? I can't remember what it's called now.
Yeah, there is.
You know what I'm talking about?
There's various ones out there. Yeah, there's a historical UFO clipping site out there which gets Australian stuff up occasionally. Various.
There's one dedicated to Australia though. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, there is. Judith McGuinness has got one that she shares a lot of stuff on. So
yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking of.
there are people out there that have got old, and basically that's the record. It's all in those old newspaper articles because that's where the history is. The report, and what you'll find is that back in the day, they, like I'm saying, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they tended to report them more matter of factly than they did later. Once you get to the 80s and 90s, you get a bit more sort of wackiness coming in. But during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they would report these cases stone cold as they were reported to at the time. So yeah, there's a lot of great actual factual old reports out there, and now they're all being forgotten. People don't know about these encounters, and they're amazing.
Yeah, so as the question I was going to ask you earlier in regards to that, like, what's going on with today's day and age? Like, you had all these incredible sightings, like you said, like back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, gone, but till today, there doesn't seem to be much going on regarding with it, anything even close to what happened back in those days.
Oh no, it's all changed. It's all changed. I think that from my understanding of all the cases that I've read about across Australia, and the really good stuff has already happened. And there's another 3 shows in all of that, I can tell you. That it seems to be that a lot of the actual curiosity of the UFOs was really occurring during those decades. I think that's when they were really coming here I'll say in droves. That's not really the right word, but they were coming here frequently, and they were actively investigating the planet in a really intense way. As in, they were following cars in the outback. They were stopping cars. They were taking stock. They were creating crop circles. They were all that stuff that was going on during that time period seemed to me to be a lot more from an investigative point of view from whoever it is coming here. Whereas once you got to the 2000s, all of that seemed to sort of stop. Now maybe it's because they've got the information that they wanted. They've gone back. It takes time to get back here. Like, who knows, And there's all these different types of reports of what the objects are coming from all over the place. So it's very hard to say. But what I will say is that from that time period, from the 40s onwards, they were here all the time, and they were here regularly, and they were doing some serious close-up investigations of what happens here. 100%.
Yeah. So would you think there would have anything, like, I know a lot of people claim that, they're very interested in our nuclear technology. Because obviously from the 40s there, that sort of been when more so nukes were around and getting tested and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
From the time period on, that they're sort of, the information would say, like, they seem to be taking a lot more interest in us from that time period, even though they've still got history back in the day, like, where they existed as well. But they seem to be a lot more interactive with the odd person here and there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think that was a clinch moment in time when Oppenheimer and his gang out there at Los Alamos were able to start dropping a few atomic bombs. I think that's when that interest did peak a lot in those decades after that. And I think they've pretty much got us pegged now, like, what planet Earth is and everything like that. So I think it's may have calmed down. And because people say, from the 2000s onwards, there's no, you haven't got Rendleshams, you haven't got Roswells, you haven't got these great encounters that were occurring back then. In Australia, I can say, 100% agree. Like, what occurred in Australia through the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and the 80s was just amazing, And those UFO investigators who worked back in those time periods were so lucky to be involved in such high strangeness cases. But what we get now is it seems to have shifted. It's changed. We're not getting those great cases that we got in previous decades.
Yeah, I know. It's just, I find it strange. Like, okay, look, people are saying things, but there's nothing in comparison, like, even close to what happened back in those days.
No.
You had the it just left me now. The dang it, I've lost me now.
Oh man, I can hit you with quite a few different cases. Like Fred Valenti's disappearance, 1978.
Yep, that's one.
Flying his Cessna over Bass Strait, heading to King Island. Man and plane disappear. it's pretty clear that he didn't crash into Bass Strait, and it's pretty clear that the man in the plane disappeared outright. And I say that as a stone cold hardened investigator. That's what happened to that. That's what happened to him. You've got the Knowles family in 1988 when they were
Thank
traveling
you. That's what I was trying to think of.
Perth across to Victoria around the Mundrabilla Aquila area of the Nullarbor Plain there, which there has been many UFO encounters along the Nullarbor Plain and in that general area. There's just heaps of them there. That's another great encounter where where it was picked up off the ground. That's a genuine case. No question in my mind. That's a genuine case. It's an incredibly strong UFO case, and they were treated so badly at the time by the media. It was terrible to see that occur to them. The Kelly Cahill encounter of August 1993 here in Narre Warren, the Dandenong area in Melbourne, an incredible case. That's just a few that I can name out of millions. West Turif is a place in northwestern Victoria, which is where they grow all the wheat. And there's a farm up there that I call our Skinwalker Ranch. There was a farm up there that had a whole series of strange encounters occur on this wheat farm, and it was and a whole heap of trace physical evidence that occurred at Turif. And there was all these crop circles out there. There was all this water tanks being drained of water. There was strange lights around the farm at night, and noises would appear around the farm, and there was no apparent source for these strange sounds that were around the farm. The actual crop circles were only discovered when the combine harvesters came in to do the wheat. And when you sit in a combine harvester, you're about 5 meters off the ground, and they could see these circular impressions in the wheat. And when they got out, the ground was compressed hard like concrete, and all the wheat was bent around in an anti-clockwise direction with broken stalks. And you could stand there I spoke to the investigator, John Ockertell. You could stand there with a crowbar and hit it, and it would just like vibrate in your hands and not go through it at all. And you could move off the circle, and it would just go into the loose soil. So this soil, and they found over 400 crop circles there at that location.
Jesus.
Yep. And they also found that above each crop circle, there was energy. There was these energy spirals that were actually above each of the circles. And John got sick working in those circles when he was doing the investigation. And one night when the family came home, they could see a yellow light over the paddock, over the sheep paddock. And all the sheep were pushed up into one corner, and this yellow light was in front of them like this. And the sheep were just trying to get away from this yellow light. And as the car approached, the yellow light took off. And they went out into the paddock with their torches trying to calm the sheep down. The sheep were going crazy. And they found an eagle, a wedge-tailed eagle on the ground. And the eagle was just like it was drunk. He had no control over himself at all. He was just completely disorientated by whatever had been out in that paddock. So these are all the unknown dying reports that have occurred out in Australia over such a long period of time.
That's crazy. Yeah. Is there any footage and images of the crop circles at all?
Yeah. There's photos. Yep.
I would like to think so.
Yep.
I would like to
thought. There's photos. There was a TV show in the 90s called what was that called? My memory fails me so much these days. The Extraordinary. And The Extraordinary was a show in the 1990s that explored all the mysteries in Australia. A really good show. And you can Google those episodes on YouTube. And they did one on the Turif crop circles. And it's very interesting to watch because they go out there, they've got all the photos of the crop circles. They talk to John, the investigator, and it's really, really good.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. Right. I'll have to go and check it out. So I do have a question here. It's probably well off the Australian side of things. So Felicity's asking, what's your thoughts on Skinny Bob?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Those who don't know who Skinny Bob are, this is Skinny Bob.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting footage. I kind of am impressed by Skinny Bob. Like, from the footage that I've seen of it, it looks completely believable to me. Like that's what I would say about it. It looks completely believable. Is he real? I don't know. I don't have that answer. But I was impressed by the appearance and the how real he looks, and how much it looks like it's a real entity. So I'm probably going to say that yes, I believe in Skinny Bob, pending further information to disprove or prove either way. But it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because if it's when I say like even like the facial muscle expressions and all they're moving that, don't they, in this one?
Yeah,
The Skinny Bob in
exactly.
this
Yeah,
one.
it's
Yeah,
like
so
the whole face moves and he's got expressions and everything. Very interesting footage. Yeah,
let's see if I
100%.
can get that up. Give us a
You'd
sec.
say it was real, if you just saw the footage for sure, and you didn't know any backstory or
Hmm.
don't know that it was CGI, But it does look very realistic.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find a video here if we can get one of Skinny Bob there, but it doesn't seem anything very accurate. It just seems to want to keep going to all doco sort of stuff. That's
Yeah.
all right. We'll leave it to another time. For those who want to find it, go and search up Skinny Bob on Google. You'll turn up somewhere. um,
Yeah, very easy to find.
yeah. But yeah, look, mate. Look, there's like I was saying, like there's some incredible encounters in Australia. There's especially the ones like get missed a lot. Like we've got the main ones that you mentioned earlier. So I'd love to go and pick your brain with some of the investigations you went through there, and also like this is basically an introduction for yourself there for people who don't know who you are and
Yeah.
basically what your backstory is. And obviously, like I said, I want to get you in here and go and pick your brain of your investigations and research and stuff, mate. Like where you sort of found it. Now, I do believe you also have got your own podcast as well.
Yeah, I had my own. I'm not doing it now, but it was called Unexplained Phenomena. You can watch it. It's on the UNX network in America. It's an American network. I've did that show for about 12 months or so.
Righto.
It was a weekly show, and I investigate all Australia's mysteries. So not just UFOs. Talk about ghosts. Talk about cryptids. Anything mysterious or unknown. That show is a lot more expansive than anything I'd done before. So I got to learn about a lot of other really strange Australian mysteries. So it's on the UNX network in America, Unexplained Phenomena Australia. They still play the episodes today, and you can certainly catch up with them on there. They're also on the UNX YouTube channel as well. So you can find my shows on there as well.
Yeah, I think it's Spotify as well. I think you mentioned Spotify.
Yeah,
Is
it's on
it Spotify?
Spotify. It's on
Spotify,
all
iTunes, all sorts of
those.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, that's cool. Like, have you thought about coming back into it and doing it again, or like as your own sort of gig?
I've done it for such a long time, and I'm enjoying taking a little bit of a break from active investigation, and I'm not involved in groups or anything like that. I'm doing a bit of script writing and other stuff that I'm doing sort of this year to sort of put myself at a different angle. But I don't think I'm ever going to be too far away from it, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
I think I'm still going to be around it for a while to come. And I'm always got my eyes open for something of interest, 100%, Anthony. So, there's, maybe we should wrap it up shortly, but happy to come back and and give you more. I've got hours of it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's what I mean. Like, I'm hoping to get you back on. Like I said, it's a bit of an introduction, get a bit of a history of who
Yep.
you are, what you did, where you came from, basically. So people go, "Oh yeah, now I know this guy," or "Oh yeah, okay, now I know this guy," and we've got to dive deeper into it. Like, that's the idea, like, because there's so much. We've got a lot of guys in Australia that never really got recognized, or they've been forgotten. They got Keith Basterfield, Bill Chalker, to name
Yep.
a couple there. Like, they're not so much in the picture now. Like, Bill Chalker's still out and about. And I think he still does his things here and there. He's got his little blog there on his website every now and again.
Yep.
But Keith, I think he's gone the back burner now on this. Now he's taken it pretty much stopped. I'll try to get him on the podcast there, but he's got no interest in it.
No, I'd like to say to anyone out there, if you are serious about UFOs in Australia, then you need to look at Bill Chalker's work, and you need to look at Keith Basterfield's work. Both of them have done an incredible amount of UFO investigation. They are my heroes in Australia. They really are. Along with other people, there's other people that I admire, but they have done a great deal of really rock solid UFO investigation. And if you follow their blogs and you read their books, then you will be highly educated on Australian UFOs.
Yeah, I like to say I call them the legends of the Australian UFO community, basically.
100%. Yep. I know
Yeah,
both of
absolutely.
them, and they're great guys.
Yeah, I'd love to meet him. I've had Bill on here a couple of times here in the past. I'm going to get him back on there at some stage too, because just the guy's just
Definitely.
walking bloody Wikipedia basically when it comes to this
Yep.
sort of topic.
Yep.
Absolutely amazing man.
He's fabulous.
It is. So another quick question here from Kelly there. Will you still be doing crimes? I'm not sure what that one's about.
Yeah, I do
What
actually
have I missed?
I do some cold case crime investigation as well.
Aha.
It's another interest of mine. Basically, any mystery I'm interested in, and unsolved cold cases are in the crime arena, or murders particularly, also interest me as well. And I've done quite a bit of work in the past on a unsolved murders here in Victoria, which is the Tynong North murders, where 6 women were killed and by a suspected serial killer, and no one was ever prosecuted for it. So I've spent a lot of time. I've been to the crime scenes. I've done videos. I've spoken to witnesses and have had more witnesses come out as a result of my investigations as well. Tynong North, that's exactly the one. Fascinating. One of Australia's still unsolved, very unsolved cold case. And I've been to the locations, as I've said, all the locations where they lived, where they walked the same paths they walked, videoed all that, got right into it. I am keen to get back into that as well, also, and continue with that, and plus some other stuff. So yeah, I think there will be some more stuff coming on Tynong North as well. So stay tuned.
Love it. Well, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Fantastic night
Yep.
having you on here, mate. It's been great. Like I said, mate, I'm going to get you back on here at some point there. I'm going to pick your brain.
Yeah, go for it, Anthony. Thanks. Great to see you again. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you up at Cardwell. I'm glad we connected.
That's right, yeah.
And I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. So yeah, have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, no, mate, absolutely fantastic, mate. Loved it. So yeah. All right, till next time, mate. I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. Good night.
Cheers, mate. Catch ya. And that will do it, folks, for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. And don't forget, if you or someone you know has had an encounter, please get in touch with me to be featured on the podcast. If you're a fan of the show, you can support the podcast by purchasing some awesome merchandise that's available on our online store via the link provided in the episode description. So thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Encounter Down Under. Hooroo!